Jæja, gott fólk, komið sæl, verið velkomin, gott að sjá ykkur, fá ykkur sæti. So, we have yet another good guest for the talk series, Marta Czyż, coming to us from Poland, and you are our second guest this year. We had a visit from France a couple of weeks ago. The artist Jan Thomas was with us in this series, and you are now, and we have two more exciting guests coming in the fall that we have almost confirmed, so we will publish it online very soon. So we continue this good tradition of inviting people since 2007. We've had quite a number of theorists and curators and artists joining us in this series. It is the Reykjavík Art Museum, together with the Icelandic University of the Arts and Miðstöð Íslenskrar myndlistar. What's it in Icelandic Art Center? It's always good to remember that. Icelandic Art Center. And we have this threefold visit where the visitor comes to see the art scene in depth in a very swift trip. It's the talk here, which is public, and then there's a visit to the art school and talks with students, and then it's studio visits and just a major trip around the art scene. I know you've been very busy visiting artists and seeing the sites. But to introduce you and your talk, you have a title for your talk, which is Curatorial Practice as Working with Archives and History of Social Movements that Create Contemporary Context. So your talk will be about exhibition making based on archives and contemporary art, curating exhibitions of ephemeral art, and your experience as the curator of the Polish pavilion at the Venice Biennial, where you displayed Ukrainian artists during a far-right governance. So Marta Czyż is an art historian, independent curator and critic, living in Warsaw, Poland. You were, as I said, curator of the Polish pavilion at the 60th Venice Biennial in 24, with the exhibition by the Ukrainian collective Open Group, which everybody who went there will remember as one of the highlights of that experience. And we are lucky enough that the Living Art Museum has announced that this work, together with other works by the Open Group, will be on display at the Living Art Museum in June next year. So you'll be coming again to visit. Your practice draws on archives and recent developments in art history to influence culture and social movements. You've researched the history of exhibitions in Poland and the profession of curating, and your special focus since 2019 has been focusing on Ukrainian art. So we are very excited to hear your talk. We will welcome questions and answers afterwards, and conversation that can continue with light drinks here outside. So we look very much forward, and I welcome you to the stage, Marta.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation. And I really wanted to thank Icelandic Art Center, especially Oydur, Marcus, Margaret, for having me here. I'm really honored, and you took care of me, and Haidur as well. You took care of me. I visited a lot of studios, and I will visit as well even more during next days. I wanted to thank my hosts and people who had this initiative to invite me here, Lucas and Veronica. Really, you're the best hosts, and thank you very much. And I think that I will just begin the story. I really agree with what my friend Sebastian Cichocki, also a curator, said. To what other profession could I compare a curator? He said then ventriloquist. In Polish, we say it's someone who speaks through the stomach, but it's not that speaking through the stomach we are comparing to be a curator, but someone who we can more refer to the book A Cultural History of Ventriloquism. So the ability to extract the voice from something that is inanimate. It has an interesting history, an oracle, a burning bush. Get the voice out of an object. This is how I see curating. Curators are increasingly placed on an equal high positions with artist directors of institutions gaining publicity. After all, they are the ones who bring out new interesting phenomena, and today also they set trends. The history of the curatorial profession in Poland is quite short. It's primarily associated with political system change, and after which new institutions appeared, followed by a new requiring descriptions and contextualization. In the 1990s, this work was more of an activity in the dark and kind of still unknown territory, what curating is. Today, of course, curator is well established and has clearly defined tasks, which, however, are expanding every now and then. Today, an exhibition is not only art objects arranged in the space, and one can curate virtually anything: a book, a walk, a meeting, a dinner, and often we are referring in this kind of we often refer to Jerzy Ludwiński and his concept of post-artistic art. In 1972, the Polish theorist Jerzy Ludwiński wrote on his essay Art in the Post-Artistic Era, "It's very likely that today we are no longer concerned with art. We simply missed the moment when it transformed into something completely different, something we can no longer name. However, it is certain that we are dealing with today has greater possibilities." So a lot of curators follow today Jerzy Ludwiński, but I believe that it's also what's going on not only in Poland, but in general. I was studying art history in Warsaw University, and I've made Erasmus in Berlin and Freie Universitat in 2007-2008. And when I came back, I did my magister, and I decided to go to curatorial studies that were at the time in Krakow, and Adam Budak, one of the curators, Polish well-known curators, established them on Jagiellonian University. And as I was studying this curatorial studies, we had a lot of meetings. We were preparing an exhibition, but actually, after these studies, I had more questions than answers. How to describe someone who is a curator? What does the curator? How to curate? I was inspired by many things, but I didn't know what does it mean to bring an idea and then to curate it. What is the path actually? How to become a curator? When I can call myself a curator? Will it be that I will get the diploma and it will be this already? Or I have to do something else? And why people were calling themselves curators when there was no curatorial studies in Poland? In 90s, for example, in the beginning of 2000. And from these questions, I started with my friend, Juliu Wielgus, who was studying with me in Krakow, visiting curators and asking them about the path, their professional path, how they began to be curators, when did they name themselves curators. And we decided that we will ask curators from different kind of strategies. We will ask the curator from the small local town in Poland, the director institution of in Warsaw, gallerists that curate exhibitions in a contemporary space, the curator who is dealing only with video medium, the one who is dealing with post-artistic art mainly, Adam Szymczyk, of course, one of the most important curators in the art world. Like, we also wanted to ask him about this in his international career. And yeah, after these studies, we were just visiting them and making really, really long interviews. Sometimes we were coming back again and again, having even more questions. But the first question was always, who did you want it to be when you grow up? And this was the beginning of the story that, you know, no one, okay, there is one person who wanted to be a curator, because when I was interviewing Hans Ulrich Obrist in 2017, I asked him who did he wanted to be when he grew up, and he said, an art curator. I was visiting St. Gallen library when I was 9 already, so I knew, okay, so, but the rest, you know, we don't see ourselves as curators, right? And we want to expand new planets, we want to be archaeologists, biologists, historians, I don't know, or have many other professions, but we never want to be a curator. So from the story of who you wanted to be in the future when you grow up, they were starting the whole story of their interests and how it became to the moment that in the end they made an exhibition out of it. Not from this first profession that they wanted to be, but generally from the interest. And I saw that it's very important that this path means that you really follow your interest, you dig in, you meet artists, you're interested in it, and finally you get some concept that you see as an exhibition. And then we were asking about different projects that they made showing this strategy, like and this book was the title was In the Frame of the Exhibition, Talks with Curators. I will give you just one quote, maybe from Adam Szymczyk, because we were asking also, what is an exhibition? Because to define what is exhibition today, we can use so many words, level, layers, places, artists, non-artists, you know, it's like, it's very actually difficult to answer yourself, what is an exhibition? And Adam Szymczyk said, there are a number of answers to this question. I'm giving you the quote because the book is only in Polish. So there are a number of answers to this question. One of which is the title of Guy Debord's film on the passage of a certain group of people through a fairly brief moment in time. Sur le passage de quelques personnes à travers une assez courte unité de temps. It was a film from 1959. This is one possibility. I also like to start from etymology because it seems to me that in words we have a kind of cultural sediment, like in a cup after drinking coffee, through which you can learn about the history of an action through the history of a concept. For example, look at the World Exhibition or the word display. In display, it's about stretching the folds, displier. We have something that is pleated and that we try to unpleat. This is also a kind of clarification, straightening something. Similarly, with the etymology of exhibition, hibere speaks of hiding, and exhibere speaks to uncovering something. However, it seems to me that it is always about showing, pointing to something, a deictic operation. In my opinion, the power of exhibition lies in the fact that we are able, through the presentation of objects, images, or words, to completely alienate that object shown from its context of use and thus produce a new meaning that is, in a sense, to create a text, a statement, an utterance that is not an artistic statement, but in a way of telling about the world. Except of this, I also investigate the history of exhibitions in Poland that begin in 1860. And once I had the idea that I will write a book about the most important, the book about history of the most important exhibitions, which never happened. I have over 300 pages right now, and I investigated a lot of exhibitions trying to get first to the concept, when did it happen that from the salon we started to make kind of curatorial exhibitions. It happened in the beginning of 20th century with the shows that were also kind of a salon exhibitions, but they were untitled, like Winter in Art, for example. These were the first ideas. And I'm developing it as well, but later I realized that I can't do it like in a linear way, chronological way, but I also have to see different decades, because the language of art and the language of talking about art was changing, especially after the Second World War. But investigating all these exhibitions, I had a lot of my own ideas, and it was also a fruitful time for me. Hopefully I will have ability to come back to this one day. And, yeah, this is me and Julia. It was in 2015. And maybe you recognize these guys, maybe not. This is Michał Kaczyński and Łukasz Gorczyca, the founders and owners of Raster Gallery, that in 2010 realized a project in Reykjavik called Villa Reykjavik, which involved international art scene, international galleries. They invited all of them to Reykjavik, and they had a lot of these galleries had their spaces somewhere in Reykjavik, and they had opening on one day, and they have a lot of concerts, very, very rich program. They've made also Villa Tokyo and Villa Toronto, and it all began from Villa Warsaw. This is a very bad picture, but these were times that there were no better pictures at the time. So this is how they looked approximately at the times when they were doing Villa Reykjavik. And when we were interviewing them for our book, they told us that before they started the gallery, they were artists. They were artists, and they were quite successful. They were doing exhibitions in the garage of Łukasz's father, and even Joanna Mytkowska, today's director of Museum of Modern Art, bought one of his works. And they even invented another artist, Mateusz Diver, and they were painting houses, Polish houses, and they were doing poetry. They had their own magazine. But then in one moment they've met Grupa Ładnie, group of artists, Rafał Bujnowski, Marcin Maciejowski, Wilhelm Sasnal, And they realized that there is someone who is speaking actually the same language as they in art, but they do it much, much more better. And they decided that they will organize an exhibition in a local gallery in small town Zielona Góra, BWA. And they've made, and they were very similar, you know. Rafał Bujnowski was also painting Polish houses, for example, and they were doing really quite the same art, but much more better. And they were also, they had their magazine, but Grupa Ładnie, it's called Group Nice Group. They had also their own magazine titled On Tuesday. And they've made the exhibition of them, and the exhibition turned out to be a symbolic end of an artistic work for its two curators, and the next stage of their work became the Raster Gallery. And I was so fascinated by the story of the beginnings that lasted for years and years that we decided that I've missed something. Okay, I missed one picture, but don't worry, I can show you later. That we decided that we will make an exhibition called Raster, the School Age. And we did the exhibition showing what they did before they became a raster gallery. And it was the starting point of the exhibition were the works from the 90s, divided according to themes characteristic for Gorczyca and Kaczyński. And the exhibition was supplemented by archival materials from before the founding of the Raster Gallery, poetry volumes, invitations to the exhibitions, issues of Raster magazine, and photographs. And each time I'm organizing exhibition, of course, like everyone who is trying to do their job well, I try to be very precise, inquisitive, and exploring the subject. Not duplicating patterns, not following fads. And I like to follow my intuition. And if I work on a big project, I also like to involve in it totally and make a total research. And in 2019, I worked on the Triennale of the Youth at the Center for Polish Sculpture in Orońsko, which is a fairly large exhibition and series of events through which I was to talk about what is happening most interesting in Polish art. So I announced that I would visit a dozen cities and meet anyone who was willing to tell me about their practice and will just send me the portfolio. So in this way, for 2 months, I had 266 talks in the country. I gave everyone who just sent the portfolio and the name of the city half an hour for the talk. And it was a great research because I really could get to know a lot of artists that I really didn't know, and I knew that most of all, I don't want to invite artists that are my friends and then I know well, because I had this concept, like a lot of people at the time, I was asking myself, what do art can do with the climate change? But my question went to like a real statement for these artists, not to tell me that, yes, we have to talk about it, we have to, I don't know, put on these themes, just what can you really do? as an artist, how should artists act in this situation? And there was an exhibition of 36 artists that were telling me about that were telling in the exhibition about the sustainability of art. For example, what kind of materials we can use, what kind of materials we should ban. Do we really have to transport, I don't know, one painting through a whole country? Maybe we should reduce overproduction. Maybe we should just stop producing artworks. Maybe we can. Maybe we should only use reused materials. So there were several, like 36 works about this. For example, this was work that was made out of cow's shit. These were sculptures, but painted in gold. But the idea of it, that these were several objects that public could buy on the exhibition, and for this money out of sale, the artist wanted to take the cow from the place that they were killing them and take her back to India, where she is a saint animal. Also, there was kind of art of generosity. There were herbs that were taken out of in the garden in the park in Orońsko, and people could just take them and make a tea out of it. This was a very good work, and actually, the story of my adventure with Ukrainian art became from meeting Yuriy Biley, one of the members of Open Group, that came to this open call to Orońsko, and immediately we became friends. So I invited him to Orońsko, and he was really thinking a lot of time what he should do actually as an artwork. And one day he's calling me and he said, "Marta, there's something wrong with the contract, you know, because they are saying here that if I won't take the work 2 weeks after the exhibition, they will destroy it." I was like, "What? No, it's not possible." And he said, "Yes." So I called the director and I told him that he absolutely have to cancel it from the contract, because no one will take the work himself. These are people from all over the country, and they have to like help us somehow. Still, there wasn't a lot of artworks showed like material. There were a lot of immaterial things, but still. So in the end, because the Center for Polish Sculpture in Orońsko is a place for, there are a lot of sculpture studio and so on. And there are a lot of stones there that you can use for your sculpture. And he took one of these stones and he entitled this work "Very Dangerous Fragment of My Contract." And it was, and he made this description, kind of engraving, in case of not taking back the piece in the term that it was in first point, the art will be destroyed. And this was a stone that was 3 tones heavy, and he decided to put it in the middle of the park. There was a moment that the director called me and he said, "What do you think you're doing? You know, you're against my institution. Like, I will never let you go to show the piece." And I said, "No, but it's you know, for the artist, I think it has a very educational character, because they should really read their contracts, you know." And he said, "Ah, okay, then you can leave it. But so, and the exhibition titled was "As Long as We Are Still Alive," and it's the beginning of the first words of Polish anthem, actually. Maybe I will tell you the story of this. This was made by one of the sculptors in Orońsko, but she made it in the with the corn meat, and it was pig from Capitol. We have the wolf from Capitol, right? But this time it was a pig from Capitol that will feed us. And after the exhibition, she put this. She threw away the sculpture to the pond in Orońsko, so fish could eat it because it was made out of cornmeal. So this work doesn't exist anymore. Well, in 2015, Law and Justice, far right wing, came into power. And what's moreover, well, the institutions were taken over by people who were on the far right-wing side. And of course, we were all discussing how we will survive this time and how long it will last. Will be the second Hungary or second Turkey, or I don't know. And the situation was going really bad because we really couldn't show our pieces in the institution. We couldn't cooperate with institutions. And it's not only about censorship, because the situation was totally ridiculous. And then the COVID came, and the tension was rising with the upcoming presidential elections scheduled for May of 10 and rescheduled eventually for 28th of June 2020. And on the 6th of May, a group of artists that I was a part of, I never have been an artist, but it was the only situation in my life that I became an artist. We staged a protest in the form of a happening, a reconstruction of a famous action letter by Tadeusz Kantor from 1967. We made this letter, and instead of a gallery, the correspondence was addressed to members of the parliament to urge them to call off the elections. Our statement playfully and poignantly commented on the ruling party's efforts to organize them despite the epidemiological situation. Live not, die. A twist on a Polish idiom that translates as life couldn't be any better. Undersigned, sovereign, which is one of the favorite words of the right-wing politicians, actually, frequently used by them to denote the will of the people given into their hands. And 10 days after this action, we informed the public that two of us had received 10,000 złotych fine, which is €2,500 each, from the specialized sanitary institution commonly known as Sanepid. Fines were delivered by masked police officers, and the action has been realized in leg artis with current regulations, with appropriate distance, facial covers, and statement from the foundation commissioning the happening clearly proving artists has been performing their work. The police were asking us, what are you doing here? And we were saying, we're at work. And they were saying, no, you're just standing here with some textile, because at that time you could leave your house only going to work or going to the groceries. But they didn't want it to believe them. A crowdfunding campaign was quickly established to cover the penalties. And in the end, during 3 days, we gathered over 25,000 euros. And upon the intervention by Adam Bodnar, a celebrated ombudsman and civic society defender, fines were finally called off. Bodnar, among other arguments, pointed to a constitutional right to organize gatherings and specifically to the role of government in delineating alternative ways for citizens to manifest their views despite the pandemic regulations banning them in every form. The piece is today, our letter, in the collection of Museum of Modern Art in Warsaw that opened the building last year. Perhaps the only true statement about the past is that there is no objective history, school textbooks, or revised and rewritten according to the interest of the politicians in power, so that they shed light on aspects of history that were not previously considered important, or conversely, to downplay certain events so that they can be erased from a popular memory. One of the most problematic dates that causes disputes and conflicts in Polish society was December the 16th, 1922, the day of the assassination of Poland's first president after independence in 1918, Gabriel Narutowicz. The event grew to become a symbol around which opposing narratives about Polish identity and history were built, and today appears as a disturbingly current context for the reality around us. December the 16th, 1922, marked the opening of the annual Salon at the Zachęta Gallery, National Gallery of Art. Gabriel Narutowicz, who had been sworn in as a president of the Republic a dozen days later, came to the exhibition on the first day of his presidency. He went to the first room. He was able to see 2 paintings, and then he was shot dead by a right-wing artist, incited to the act by a campaign that had been raging for weeks in national society circles. They boycotted the election of Narutowicz, questioning the Polishness and arguing that this election was determined by the votes of national minorities, Germans, Jews, Ukrainians, Belarusians. After the assassination, the same right-wing circles did not feel responsible for the situation and hailed up the criminal act as the action of madmen. Nevertheless, 10,000 people showed up at the funeral. The peculiarities of the Polish socio-political situation have spawned 2 factions that speculate on various historical events, describing the situation in black or white, using subjective categories of good and bad, contrasting left-wing, right-wing narratives is not only wrong but hypocritical. This was a political theater in which ambiguous and problematic concepts were curiously mixed, patriotism and fascism. In an event that took place in an art gallery a century ago, contemporary problems, both those of historical disputes and those played out in the field of art, accumulate and reverberate. The historical turn, the knocking down of old heroes from their pedestals and the elevation of the new ones to a pedestal, the revulsion to everything foreign, the creation of the only proper canons of art. This was not an ominous vision of the peace, law and justice party, but something that was happening before and at the time in our eyes. Politics without constant supervision by independent institutions degenerates into false and absurd propaganda that forces individuals to choose one side and despise all others and turns civic energy into the energy of hatred. Through research and analysis, but also through the instrument that art gives us, we can strive for a deeper understanding of historical events. It's crucial to present different points of view to do justice to both society and individuals, a diverse view that will allow us to combine collective and personal memory, bring out a rich picture of the past and spin inspiring visions of the future. In the exhibition prepared for the 100th anniversary of the assassination of Gabriel Narutowicz, with Yuriy Biley, that I was already speaking about, we proposed to treat the event of a century ago as a starting point for thinking about contemporary problems at that time. And we decided, I did a research that lasted for 1.5 years, because I found out that Narutowicz went to the exhibition and he saw actually 2 paintings. And in front of the second paintings, he was shot. So I decided that I will find these paintings and I will go back to the last view of Narutowicz in his life. And I found these paintings. One, it was easy to find because it was a painting that was in collection of National Gallery of Art. The second one was in a private collection. It was very hard to get there. I got there through some Mason contacts, and the lady told me that her father bought this picture, this painting, in December 1939, so 3 months after the start of the Second World War. In December, he's buying a painting in Warsaw because he knows that it's a historical painting and it has to survive the war. So we found these 2 paintings and we decided that we will recreate the last view of Narutowicz, but we will also invite 4 artists that represented at that time national minorities. We invited 1 German, Hans Hacke, Jew, Yael Bartana, Ukrainian, Nikita Kadan, and Belarusian artist, Jana Szostak. And we gathered them all together in this one space. This is a work by Hans Hacke that decided, especially for us, to change the very well-known poster to put the languages of Polish minorities in Poland at that time. This is the first painting that Narutowicz saw, and this was the second. What happened later? Because we knew that we are living in difficult times, but where this narration follow us to, or where do we go, and where is the art world in Poland going? I don't have a lot of, I have 2 examples, very short. But to tell you how it looked like, maybe I will tell you the story of political art exhibition that took place in Ujazdowski Center for Ujazdowski Castle Center for Contemporary Art in Poland, that was curated by Piotr Bernatowicz and Erik Lundbach. And it was an exhibition as the curators were writing. Since the political art exhibition aims to present this special group of artists from different countries and continents. Their works tell the story of the struggle for freedom, recall historical events, and revive information that has been erased from public records. They shed light on mechanisms of power, usually hidden from the public eye, and teach how to confront such structures with the truth. I will also give only a few examples of the works that were showed at that time in Center for Contemporary Art. The most controversial was Dan Park, a provocateur who has been jailed on hate crimes in Sweden. In 2009, Park placed swastikas in the boxes labeled Zyklon B, the gas used in the mass murder of and others during the Holocaust, in front of a Jewish community center in Malmö. Dan Park supports Anders Breivik, calls the Holocaust a Jewish lie, and portrays Hitler as a hero and crucified Christ. This is also the campaign he did in Norway for Breivik. Also, political art included, there was a wall of photos of Ugandan villagers holding up their new IDs. That was a part of a project by Danish conceptual artist Christian von Hornslet, who persuaded 340 Ugandan villagers in 2006 to legally change their names to Hornslet in exchange for a pig or a goat. And he was calling it the art of generosity. The Ugandan government at the time condemned the project as demeaning and racist. The story of this relationship began, I said already, this is an open group. In 2019, and I started working with them in 2020, and I was working with Yuriy Biley. We started working closely, and I did his solo exhibition as well. And together we were planning to realize 2 exhibitions in Lviv that's supposed to open on March the 4th, 2022, and we're supposed to leave Poland because Yuri lives in Poland, Pavlo lives in Ukraine, and Anton at that time was living in New York. So we're supposed to leave Poland on February 26. And of course, Russia's invasions thwarted our plans. The relationship with Open Group is about trust and respect, listening to everyone to the end. And sometimes these conversations lasted for hours, but they were very productive. And they are important always. Comes out of them something new, something you can't resist, something you follow and are absolutely convinced of. And this was the case with the biennial. Initially, due to the difficult political situation in Poland, I was not going to apply in the competition for the Polish pavilion. And later, after a conversation with a friend, I realized that I nevertheless had the right to speak my mind and proposed to apply together with Open Group. And of course, at the time, I couldn't imagine applying with anyone else. And I knew that only them would I be able to express fully what I believe in art today. At that time, I was fully fascinated in Ukrainian art. Thanks to Yuri, thanks to Open Group, I've met like dozens of artists and I became absolutely fascinated by it. Probably because they didn't have, and they still don't have, obviously, the art market. And they were very radical, political. They knew that whatever they will do, they won't sell it anyway, they won't show it anywhere. They won't travel, like they won't be seen by international art world. And even though when Mama was publishing a book about European art, it was 2017 or 18, they sent their staff, a lot of people, to Europe to travel and to visit institutions, but they didn't went to Ukraine at all. But this art is really like radical, vivid, fresh. They used a lot of unusual medias. They often make very ephemeral art, and I was really fascinated by it. And the fact of the war, of course, changed the vector of interest. And before, I was only one of few people who were interested in this art in Poland, and later, of course, the focus went on Ukrainian art, which is the only, unfortunately, good thing that went out. But with the biennial and the situation that I told you about, I was really sure that it's impossible to win, and even there is no sense to even apply, because we already knew who's supposed to win, right? And when my friend told me that, Marta, this is the time, you're working with Ukrainian artists, maybe this is the time to show them in the Polish pavilion, and even if you won't win it, you have the right to speak, you have the right to tell this proposal, they should read it. And I decided that I will apply. But of course, I didn't win it. The project that won was Ignacy Czwarto's project, Polish Practice in Tragedy between Germany and Russia. Czwarto's pavilion was to include more than 35 artworks, one of which was to show German Chancellor Angela Merkel and Russian Prime Minister Vladimir Putin near a swastika, according to the project's initial outline. And the title of this painting is Nord Stream 2. Many has criticized the project for echoing the nationalist populist politics of the Law and Justice Party that from 2015 until earlier had reigned in Poland. Party members had taken control of the media and museums and severely curtailed the rights of women and queer people. But after a general election held in October 2023, went in favor of the opposition party. On the 29th of December, Poland has announced that it has reversed its decision to showcase artist Ignacy Czwartos at the Polish pavilion because the work featured imaginary aligned with the conservative government's politics. When we learned at the beginning of 2024 as a part of the political shift, it was our project as a reserve that would be represented at the biennial. We were on the second place out of like 60 projects that were applying. And we did our best to make it happen in 3 months. I think this is what proves that also this relationship with Open Group and collaboration is more than unique. How much time do we have? We finish. Okay, so I think you can ask me other questions if I missed something, but I want to show you 2 minutes. Okay. 2 minutes of our project.
Доброго дня, мене звати Борис, я з міста Маріуполь. Звуки війни. Я хочу вам розповісти, як звучить літак і бомба, яка влучує в кислородний цех комбіната Ілліча. І під ногами хитається земля. І нема кислородного цеха на комбінаті Ілліча. Звуки війни. Повторюйте за мною. Це є звуки війни.
Град М-21. Повторюйте зі мною.
Бум-бум, дуже рвались бомби. Бум, 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 бум.
Авіабомбардування. Повторюйте за мною.
I think we can finish now. I just tell that this project was made up as a anti-war manifesto show in a non-violent way, and it's a collective portrait of refugees, representing also refugees in all over the world touched by armed conflicts. And maybe the rest I can tell later. Thank you. If you have any questions, then...
This has been very interesting. Thank you. And I'm sure there are questions in the audience. Please just raise your hands and we can use the microphone to catch it on tape. Anything in particular that you would ask Marta about? Or at least think about it? Yo.
Yeah, I will go ahead because I see so many hands up. I was quite pleasantly surprised by how you started the talk with the what did you call it, the búktalar, the ventriloquist. The thing is, I have been running a class of within the curatorial studies, you could say, or exhibition making at the University of the Arts here in Iceland, and we always start kind of like this small course of trying to imagine the curator as, and then we put, you know, all of the other professions we can think about that curators have, you know, tried to label themselves as, whether it be the curator as a shaman or the curator as a magician, a DJ, an editor, you know, whatever, ventriloquist, as a psychoanalyst, a middleman, an errand boy, you could, you know, etc., etc. And what is so interesting is that it seems like, and this has been a discussion for at least 20-something years. There's a very interesting article very early in the 2000s from Robert Storr, I think, in Freeze, where he exactly talks about this problem of curators. Why do we as curators always have to, when we talk about what we do, what methods we use, what is kind of like our profession or our praxis, then we always kind of like jump into other professions. Instead of just saying, I am a curator and I do this and that, then, you know, I am a curator, but really I work as a psychoanalyst when I do shows, or you know, or Harald Seemann would say, you know, I'm the shaman, almost, you know. So just maybe not a question, but just would be interesting to hear if you have, you know, maybe even more professions that we could add to the list.
I would say also kind of opiekunka? No. Like caregiver? Because curare is also taking care of something. And I kind of often refer to it, because sometimes you have to take care not only about artists, but like take care of this situation in general.
There is this Latin proverb of the artist, heal yourself, and it's you could turn it into the curator, curate ipsum, curator, heal yourself, because it's healing, as you say. It's the same. I love that comparison. And you talked about or uncovering, which I thought also was very nice. I wondered about uncovering and that practice of ours, curating, in the times that you described after 2015, when there is a regime that either places hostile people into cultural institutions or just smothers them with cutting funds, etc. How does a profession like curators survive? I mean, artists obviously will have problems projecting their profession and their art, but how about the curator scene? Was it extinguished, or how did you function?
I started to work at school teaching art history, and I was writing all the time. And I had a critical financial situation, and I was sure that if we will lose these elections again, I was really thinking of leaving the country. Because I couldn't imagine my life without making exhibitions. And I had these dreams that in a beautiful world, maybe I can just travel abroad and make their exhibitions, but at that time it was absolutely impossible. And yeah.
And how about, I mean, was there much brain drain like that people just left in Poland for this 10-year period?
There were people leaving. There were people leaving, definitely. And it's interesting because many of them, for example, went to Germany and now they are coming back, for example.
And would you describe the situation as changing quickly now after this political change that has happened fairly recently?
One more
the recent change in the politics in Poland, would you describe that the change is happening quickly?
Actually, the decision with Biennale was the first decision of our new Minister of Culture. He came to me and he said, it would be international shame, I couldn't let it happen. And it was his first decision, and the rest went quite fast. And we have new directors of many institutions right now, and everything is going back the good way, and we can hardly believe in it. But above of culture, we were taking a lot of laws. Like there is an abortion law in Poland, and people, and women were dying in hospitals because we had a total abortion ban. In any case, even if the health of a mother was in danger, she couldn't make an abortion, and women were dying. So, it was relief on the day of elections. I didn't thought about Biennale and this change in culture. I was just crying because I knew that we have this freedom again, and we won't be second Turkey and second Hungary, And it was a miracle.
Any questions from the audience? Yeah, please.
What would you advise curators in Hungary and Turkey at the moment?
Yeah,
artists?
Right now, it's a difficult question, thinking what's going on right now. Right now, they should really stay together and defend the freedom, but who knows how it will end in this moment, actually. Because otherwise, maybe they should wait in a safe place for the change. Okay.
So I was just thinking, because we've had a Cold War period here in Iceland, which some of us experienced directly. it sometimes happens that artists go underground.
Yes.
So artist initiatives are functioning even though it shouldn't be possible. I assume that this may have been happening in Poland, and I would be curious if you could tell us a little bit about it.
What was in this time of law and justice, right? What happened? How did the artists survive?
How did they survive?
Well, actually, the artists, it wasn't that bad situation for many of them, because many of them are represented by commercial galleries. And actually, and it was a nice talk that I had with Gregory Cholet, that, as I know, was here too. He told me that it's very good in this system, actually, that those commercial galleries, they should even invite more and more artists, because this is the way for them to survive. But of course, they went underground as well, and they were doing their stuff, because they could have like low problems, because when you hurt someone religious feelings, you can go to jail, right? You could go to jail. So there were situations when someone put rainbow on a picture of Holy Mother, and he was sued for hurting someone's religious feelings, you know. So, of course, artists were underground, but with surviving, the galleries helped a lot, really. They were organizing really a lot of exhibitions, and in the time, the art market was going pretty well, and they were selling works of these artists in Poland and abroad.
Actually, I was more curious about how did the artists make their own exhibition that they organized themselves, and in what kind of places would they be able to show their work?
Mm-hmm. Well, they were doing a lot of alternatives, a lot of in their flats. But sometimes some very unusual places, because a lot of these works were like happenings that were made, I don't know, in the train station, for example, or on the street. So there were a lot of this kind of moments, and especially, well, a lot of them were, of course, in the internet, because this was also the time of COVID, and they were making like residencies on Instagram, for example, which was like a total absurd, but at that time we didn't have any choice. But there was also a very interesting project that actually my friend Joanna Varsha did with Ovul, I won't spell her name, she's from Turkey, and they are living in Berlin, and they've made a very interesting project called Di Balcone, and they asked French artists, that, as we know, Berlin is a city of artists, and they asked their friends to make an artwork and an exhibition on their balconies. And then you had a map, and you can just follow these balconies and watch the art like that, for example.
Okay. Any further questions from the audience? No?
Thank you for your talk. So I'm trying to organize my thoughts a little bit. So I was in Tbilisi in Georgia recently, and there they have the government is really targeting cultural institutions and art museums, the far-right government. And I was told while I was there that a few people who kind of could stand up against these, the government were the people who had the biggest international kind of connections. And do you think that is a way to kind of, by establishing international connections, you can kind of
yes, I think every way to survive and to get this freedom back is good, I believe. There is no one solution today. There are plenty of solutions, and we should use them all, because each of us is different and each of us can somehow fight in a different way. So I kind of fight on a cultural field, right? But everyone can do something else, and it should be done, I believe.
Okay, so maybe I will suggest that we continue our conversation just outside, have some fresh air and some drinks. Thank you very much for your talk, and thank you all for coming. And we give you a good applause and continue the conversation.
Thank you.